Welcome to Press TV's News Analysis with me, Homa Lesgi. On this programme, we're asking, what is the way out of the crisis in Yemen? Has the mediation effort by Persian Gulf Arab states helped or worsened the situation? Will the Yemeni people have to wait longer for President Ali Abdullah Saleh to resign? And what are the challenges that lay ahead if he does? Well, first, let's introduce our guests. In London with us is Middle East expert Isaac Biggio. In South Bend, Indiana, editor of Culture Wars magazine's Dr. E. Michael Jones, and on the line from Belfast, author and Middle East expert Dr. Saib Shas. I'd like to welcome you, gentlemen, on this edition of News Analysis, and I'll start with London. Mr. Biggio, Persian Gulf Arab states have proposed a transfer of power to Saleh's deputy, as you know, but the protesters are saying the plan lacks a specific time frame for Saleh's departure, and they're strongly against this offer to give immunity to Saleh and his family against prosecution. In your view, has the Arab initiative made the situation more complicated?
Yeah, I think the situation it has become more complicated because the Gulf states, what they want is to avoid a revolution that can spread to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to the Emirates, and that a revolution that can put in risk the petromonarchies. So what they want is like a gradual transition in which the ruling family will not be subject of any further trial, no? And that is creating more complications.
Dr. Michael Jones, how do you think they're trying to influence the situation in Yemen?
Well, I think they're trying to get a transition that will go as quickly as possible. But I think you're going to have to, the real danger is going to be for anarchy following from a revolution. So what I think we need to do is assure that there's an orderly transition that can be best ensured by a trial that's taken under the rule of law.
An anarchy from transition in Dr. Jones's view. I'll come back to that, but let's just go to Saib Shas as well on the line from Belfast. Mr. Shas, speaking about the Arab initiative, does their proposal show in some protesters' words, rather, that they're trying to save the regime while forcing Saleh out? I mean, that has been an accusation that they've been facing because of the offer of immunity for President Saleh.
It's too late for the Gulf states to talk about that, and they're trying in here to meddle in the affairs of Yemen. Saudi Arabia done that militarily in attacking the Houthis before, and always even the sects attacking the revolution of Yemen. Now they're trying to avert the spillover of the success, which they see in the change of the American position as well, and the success of the revolution is happening and achieving its goals on the ground. They want to avert any of that by guaranteeing a peaceful transfer of powers to some puppets, which they will recommend by putting some money and buying the opposition in Yemen, as they tried to do with the Egyptian revolution, and they failed. And in that we see when they offering Saleh, the butcher who killed hundreds of people, at least 350 died on his hands and 1,000 injured, the protection from a future prosecution. This guy gave an umbrella for the CIA to kill and to destroy in his country, and this guy leached the hooligans and the thugs against the revolution, and now they want to give him safe passage and to install another puppet who can continue with the same policies. The Yemeni revolutionary rejected that. Even the opposition, which seen some points on that proposal can serve them, they rejected that because they are scared from being rejected from the young revolutionaries in the street. But the worrying thing in here, the statement today made by General Ali Mohsen al-Ahmar, he was the second man in command in there, and he welcomed this proposal. This man is in charge of most of the army. In here, I see the worrying development. Yes. In here, I have to watch and be careful how to deal with this. Those people, they can see the package coming from the Gulf states as political proposal, a transfer of power to the hands, which a general like Mohsen al-Ahmar can have a major role in it, and money coming to save the economy as well. We understand historically these states, the Gulf states, never helped Yemen, always caused trouble to Yemen, destroyed the economy of Yemen, mingled in the affair and caused civil wars between south and north of Yemen. And they are not about time now to change behavior and to bring peace to Yemen. What they are proposing to keep the status quo, but with a different face than the butcher Ali.
I'd like to go to London now, put what you just said, Dr. Schatz, to our guest in London, Mr. Baggio. Do you think that, as Mr. Schatz was saying there, they are looking for a safe passage and they are looking, in his words, for a new puppet, looking for a way to save the regime? If so, what are the interests that they're looking for?
Well, I agree with the previous speaker. No, I think that they are trying to change a little bit to keep everything as equal as it is now, to keep the status quo. No, they wanted to change the president that have been ruling for one third of a century by some of his colleagues, and in order to keep U.S. interests safe in the region. So the idea of a transitional process doesn't, if you reject the transitional process, doesn't mean that you are in favor of chaos and anarchy. It means that you are not in favor of keeping the same situation. And if people are in the street asking for a change, the change has to be allowed to happen. What we are seeing now is trying to control the movement, trying to avoid that the protests go to the petromonarchies. They are trying to save the skin of the Saudi monarchy and all the Emirates monarchies.
And Dr. Jones, something else that was raised here in those comments was the involvement of the United States. Do you think that there is a coordination in the policies that are adopted by Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf Arab states and Washington?
Yes, I'm sure there is. But I think what you have to take into account is the self-contradictions in American foreign policy. For example, the two pillars of American foreign policy would be, on the one hand, belief in democracy, and on the other hand, support of Israel. Well, this leads to a contradiction. This is not going to work in the Middle East. In a sense, you have, we saw this in Palestine, where the Palestinians were told they needed democratic elections, but as soon as they elected Hamas, then, well, they made the wrong choice. And so we don't believe in democracy. So this type of hypocrisy is coming out across the Arab world, and I think that what's going to happen is that America is going to get caught up in its own self-contradictions, and even if it won't be able to exercise power in an effective manner because it can't solve these self-contradictions.
So what are the interests, though, Dr. Jones, that would force the United States to make the stance that it's been making up until now on Yemen?
What are the forces that will force them to make
No. The question was, what are the interests that they have in Yemen that's making them, as you say, adopt a stance that you describe as hypocritical?
No, they're caught in a contradiction that's not of their own making. They want oil and they want to support Israel, and that is impossible over the long haul. So I'm saying that they will not be able to exercise power in an effective manner until they have a coherent foreign policy, and that means either breaking with one or the other. And the political situation in America now is that the Israel lobby runs American foreign policy, so they can't break with that, so they will not be able to have a coherent policy. So what happens is that the people in the world sort of take the message that America presents and says they're for democracy, and they take that and they run with it, and America is faced with a situation that is out of its control. It just can't control this many situations all at once.
Right. Well, you say a lack of coherent policy. Let's just put that question to Saeb Shahs in Belfast. Mr. Shahs, do you think that there is a lack of coherent policy on the sides of the United States, or the policy that's adopted by the US is meant for a specific purpose and it is actually being premeditated?